Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the VSI Sporting Directors podcast with our friends at Omni Sports. I've got to say I'm really looking forward to this chat with somebody who's played 52 times for their country, 2 World Cups, played against Liverpool in a League Cup final, played for Liverpool in an FA Cup final. He works for beIN Sport as a pundit and he's now embarking on VSI's Sporting Directors course. Delighted to welcome into our studio Jason McAteer. And wow, people think and hear you're studying, you're doing a course, you're doing a Sporting Directorship. They won't believe that, will they?
Probably not, knowing my history and
your alter ego, if you like.
Yeah, the sort of preperception of, who Jason McAteer is.
Do people really know? They think you're the wash and go guy. They think you're Trigger, and they think you're Dave.
Exactly. Yeah, it's it was more of a character really.
But I didn't realise that went all the way back to Bolton Wanderers. I thought that was something that started at Liverpool, but it was at Bolton, wasn't it?
Yeah, kind of. I tell you what happens, James. I was 20 years of age when I signed pro. So obviously I've, 15, I'm having trials, no academy. Back then, it was kind of like just the School of Excellence as it kind of started, the Tuesday and Thursday nights. So I was at Chester Football Club. Harry McNally. Do you remember Harry McNally?
I know the name, but I don't. Yeah,
you're a bit younger than me, aren't you?
Only slightly.
Okay, well, Harry was a big personality in the world of football at the time, but he was manager at Chester, and of course I was there, School of Excellence for a couple of months. Then I had a trial at Manchester United, a 3-day trial. Then I had a trial at Everton. Then I had a trial at Tranmere. This is all around 15 or 16, and then the same kind of response was coming back: far too small, lightweight. We will keep monitoring your progress was the line.
And everyone came out with that, yeah.
Yeah, it was the stock line, wasn't it? It was kind of thanks, but no thanks. We'll ring you, don't ring us.
Were you small? Were you really small?
Yeah, I was underdeveloped, yeah. My family are very, very sporty. My uncles were quite famous boxers, actually, middleweight champions, British champions. So my family were very sporty, and my dad was the youngest of 4 brothers and a sister, but he was the one that kind of didn't have to take the punches, but lived the dream kind of thing. But he was very, living sort of Birkenhead and around Tranmere around the 70s, the 70s and early 80s was a tough gig. Yeah, in and out of unemployment and employment and what have you. And it was a tough gig, to be honest, for my mum and dad. But, they did their best. And, in some ways it kind of shaped me to be more determined, to grasp onto things when it came along and to work hard. That was always the ethics in our house was, you work hard, you get rewarded. So, that's how I grew up. And then obviously, go back to the trials, it didn't work out. But I always had this, it's never over until it's over.
But you say that. I mean, you play semi-pro with Marine. Do you think it was over then, or did you still have the dream?
No, I still believed it. Marine was basically a bit of a lift really, because I was playing. So I get to 16, I leave school. I'm a little bit lost. I then go to college because, I liked art. It was literally I liked art in school, and done well on my art exam. So I ended up in college. I done graphic design in college full time.
So you can draw a bit.
Yeah, creative. I'm creative. So what happened then was I finished my course, and literally I wasn't good enough to be a graphic designer. It was just as simple as that. So I actually signed on the dole. I signed on the dole for a few months, and it was horrible. It was horrible. I just couldn't do it. So I got offered an opportunity to go to America when I was 20, around the June time. So I went over. I did 3 months on the visa, and I got offered a soccer scholarship in Ohio. And then I came back in the December, and I was told by the university to keep on training, go back to Marine reserves. I wasn't even playing in the first team for Rowley Howard. I was playing in the reserves, and I went back, played for the reserves. And my plan was to go back out in the sort of late February. So I had a couple of months back at home, and I literally played a game for Marine Reserves. It was against Bolton. It was a Saturday morning, and Phil Neal, who was the manager of Bolton at the time, was watching the game. And it was just one of them games, mate, where it just all clicked. Scored a couple, laid a couple on, stood out, and Phil Neal just sort of took a shine to me. And I was on non-contract at Marine, and Phil rang up on the Monday after the game on the Saturday and said to my mum, listen, I want to get him down to Bolton, have a look at him, give him a week's trial, and I'll decide then what we do. So I went down. Sammy Lee picked me up from the Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool, got a train to the Adelphi. Sammy picked me up, which I was starstruck, being a big Liverpool fan. It was Sammy Lee driving me to training. I was like, oof. And that was the start of it. 3 days into the trial, Phil offered me a contract till the end of the season, which was May, and got me up to speed. And apparently he was going to throw me in around the April time. I think the season must have been dead. And he just said, I was going to throw you in. But I got a hamstring injury around the Easter time, April, and I didn't actually feature in the first team. And then Phil got the sack, and then Bruce Rioch came in, give me a year's contract straight away. We had a really good bunch of young kids there. There was myself, Darren Oliver, Andy Roscoe, Alan Stubbs was there, Neil Fisher, and he kind of looked after us all, kept us all together. And that was the start of my proper football career. At
a bag of balls, £500, or is that?
No, that's true. Yeah, because I was on non-contract. Marine lost out on apparently £10,000. That's what they would have asked for had I been on a contract. And they were offered £500 and a bag of balls as a bit of a compensation.
So in going through the college thing and going through maybe the scholarship system in America, you're already going against the Dave Trigger thing already. So where does it become a good idea to be something you're not?
Survival.
Dressing room survival.
Survival.
From day one?
Yeah. I mean, it's
because I've heard people talk about it. David Lee, for example, at Bolton Wanderers, says, he was clever. He knew exactly what was happening. He was going to just be there, survive, but also put people in strange situations by asking stupid questions.
I mean, I can only imagine because I didn't come through the system. I mean, the system would have been, you're 15, 16, you're School of Excellence, then you sign a YTS, but you're very much in the system and you belong to the football club, and, you'll grow up in that community, and, you'll learn very quickly how to survive one way or the other. You'd either do it with your feet, you do it with your mouth. You're clever, you're not clever, whatever it takes to survive. I'm thrown in at 20 years of age into a first team dressing room in the early 90s, where, there was a lot more acceptable things going on there than what there would be now. I mean, to be honest, the things going on in that dressing room it couldn't happen now. It doesn't happen now. It doesn't happen now. Well, I hope it doesn't happen now. And it was a very tough old school dressing room. Bullying was prominent. You had to survive with your tongue, sometimes with your fists. You'd see fights, arguments. Everything was all right when you're winning, but when you're losing, there's always fall guys. There's always someone accountable. Someone has to take responsibility. You can filter into the dressing room, personality clashes, different cultures, people learning about each other. It was tough. So I'm coming in wet behind the ears, and I'm mixing with the likes of Mark Seagraves, Phil Brown, Tony Kelly, fellow Scouser, Phyllis Skirk, Reeves, Kane, Felgate in goal. For the Bolton fans out there, I've just reeled off a load of legends there. So, you've got to survive. And for me, you grow up on Merseyside, you kind of learn how to survive with your tongue, whether you're a joker or whether you've got to get yourself out of scrapes, and you've always got an answer for everything, Scousers, haven't we? So, I was quick-witted, but I quickly found that I had this character who could tell a joke or be the brunt of a joke, and play the dumb character, play the class clown, really, the jester, and you being young, that's how you get away with it, and all of a sudden, you're kind of the personality in the dressing room that everyone wants to be around when you're having a drink, because good old Trigger he'll be the laugh, won't he? He'll be the one who'll tell us the silly stories, or be the brunt of the jokes and stuff. And I didn't mind doing it, but I quickly found, and I think human nature, you want to be liked as well, and the quicker you can be liked for one reason or another, you'll adapt to that, I think. And for me, it was playing the class clown.
So behind all that, were you thinking about the game as well, or were you just going to go along with it? And I'm asking that because you're now got to think about the game and about structures if you're going to be a sporting director, or you want to be a sporting director. It's very different to the sort of existence you were talking about then, when it was just a kind of man eat man, dog eat dog type existence.
Yeah, I mean, the modern game, it's changed a lot, and that would be, right through the football club, whether it's at board level, down into, partnerships, down into data, down into recruitment. There's so many now different aspects to running a football club. But, the dressing room obviously features in that as well, and the managers, change now. They're a lot younger. They've come through a different system. Like I said, there's a lot of things that went on. The FA, the Premier League, they've all stepped in and changed guidelines to how, youngsters train, how they're brought through academies now, around a lot with certainly with Premier League football clubs and big teams in Europe, the top leagues in Europe. Maybe not so much filtered down the pyramid because of financial reasons or whatever, but, the guidelines and the rules are still, right through. Protection of players is very important. Younger players, dealing with younger players. And I've had a taste of this as well, certainly at Tranmere, which I'm sure we'll get onto. Players being released from football clubs after having them for so many years. There's a care of duty now. So there's lots of different aspects that are around now that weren't around in my day. If you were released from a football club, thanks very much.
But you also work for a kind of old school managers who wouldn't want the structure of a sporting director telling them what to do, would they?
They were different characters back then, yeah. I mean, having studied now and read up on it, I can see the change now a lot clearer. I mean, we're probably flipping over now into something a little bit different, but from the beginning of my football career, early 90s, very early 90s, right through to 2008-9 when I retired, a lot changed. Probably the biggest change in certainly British football. We went from, if you're talking specifically about football managers, having a lot of responsibility through the football club. They would make a lot of decisions at top level. Not so much, at top level in the sense of like they'd be recruitments. If they want a player, they get the player. Now it's a different process. There probably wasn't a recruitment team back then. It was a manager, assistant manager, coach. They'd like a player. They'd probably head scout. I'll use an example. Ron Yates would go and have a look. He would monitor the progress. Then Roy Evans would go and have a little look with Doug Livermore. Then Ronnie Moran might go and have a little look here. And then they'd make the decision. Then they'd buy, they'd go and see Peter Robinson. And
but there was no data, there was no internet, there was nothing like that, was there?
No, it was literally like, is he a good lad? Yeah. Where's he come from? It's from here. What's his mum and dad like? It's like this. But he can play the kid, so we'll take him. And basically that was probably your process. Now, as you said, there's so many different advantages now with data, stats. Your scouting recruitments is all your bigger teams now. So they'll go and watch lifestyle. They do all the due diligence on how you are as a person, like where you've come from, your life, all this kind of stuff. Character, all that plays into it. And then they'll make the decision. But the process was different. But the football managers certainly, from the ones I played, were very old school, would have a lot of, what would be the word? They'd have a lot of authority in a football club. Not so much now.
Gerard Houllier would be different, though, wouldn't he? In a sense, not the authority because he liked the authority. And I mean, I know that from a media point of view, what he said kind of went, but he would entertain something of structure there, wouldn't he? Like a more foreign structure, bearing in mind his heritage. He'd go for a sporting director probably more readily than anybody else you maybe worked.
Yeah,
for.
well, that was another change. So early 90s. Obviously, when the football money came into it from Sky TV, obviously a lot of things improved right down the pyramid of football, and there was, obviously there was more resources then to exploit. But the British game was falling behind, the European game, so they were trying to quickly catch up to speed. As much as they were doing well in Europe and stuff, there was the knockbacks through Heysel, and obviously then, British football teams were excluded from European competitions. Maybe that might have knocked it a little bit. But as well, the Italian league was much more of an attractive proposition for players, and they were moving abroad. And really, foreigners weren't really coming into the British game. Around sort of the mid-90s, there was a sprinkling of foreigners coming because the attraction was the money. London, a lot of them went to London. They wanted to, move into sort of the capital. And then the big change for me was sort of around 97, 98. Listen, France won the World Cup in 98, so it kind of cemented everyone's idea that they were doing it right. And they'd obviously started around the early 90s with a different approach to football, which was investing in the youth, bringing players through in a different manner. And they flourished in 1998 when they won the World Cup, and everyone looked at them and looked at how they did it. And then, at the forefront of that was Arsene Wenger, and then it was obviously Gerard Houllier was heavily involved in the French Association, bringing these youngsters through, the likes of Anelka, Henry, Trezeguet, all these players coming through. And then it was very trendy to be French, wasn't it? So we were eating like the French, training like the French, and everyone was hiring French players or buying French players or hiring French managers or someone who was French. So obviously Arsene had come in. He was doing a great job at Arsenal. Players-wise, it was more the Vieiras, Ginolas, players like that. Desai came in. And then obviously Gerard Houllier. Liverpool were changing the direction of their football club from very old school boot room. So it gone right through from Shankly, Paisley, then Fagan Dalglish to Evans, to now a change of direction. And of course it was French. So Gerard Houllier came in and completely changed the outlook of certainly Liverpool Football Club.
Did he change your understanding of how football could work? Or was there kind of more conflict than that?
Yeah, my football education was, the early 90s, the drinking culture was very prominent. And certainly playing for Ireland and Bolton, I didn't have a drink until I was about 19, 20.
And then a lot.
And then a lot, yeah. No, because my manager, Bruce Rioch, very old school, and I was very wet behind the ears. The last thing I needed to be doing was drinking with the senior pros and realising what girls were, to be honest. It was, Bruce's, the old school manager wanted you married off very young and having kids because they knew where you were. You were at home, like with your missus and bringing the kids up. They didn't want you out. And you're okay for Tuesday
and Saturday.
They didn't want you out. They wanted you in, and it changed. There was a lot more money when Sky and TV rights came into it, and we were paid a lot more money, and which I'll go on to. But from being wet behind the ears early 90s. Football was very, very different. It was very different. Big drinking culture, old school players. They'd run the dressing room. The manager would run the football club. It was what it was. You did as you told, and that was it. And then it changed, as I said, through the mid-90s, it was changing because of the money. So, the big change from 92 to maybe 97 was we were paid a lot more money. Clubs now we're seeing there was potential to make money through advertising, partnership deals, commercial deals. And I noticed that football fans were very much of the old school thought of like, why is David James on a 20-foot poster modelling for Armani? That's just not right. He's got a game on Saturday. Why is Jason McAteer doing a wash and go advert? Surely he should be sleeping in the afternoons. Why is he doing modelling? Why is Jamie Redknapp modelling for Topman? Why is David Beckham modelling for this, that, and the other? Why are they all doing this? Why are they on the back of cereal packets? People couldn't get their head rounds change. People, the football fan couldn't handle change. It was very
What was it like being in that dressing room back then? When you've got all those things going on, and are you envious because David James has got Armani and you've got wash and go?
No, not at all, no.
Or are you just thinking, right, but don't care where the money comes?
Don't care where the money comes from. I mean, it was, am I going to tell a lie here? Am I really being ethical on some of the things that were still, you do it. If you'd have said to me, well, wash and go were, doing animal testing and all that, would you do? I probably would be naive to it and probably just go, well, I don't know. Someone sticks a contract in you and go, there's an extra $100,000 there if you model for wash and go, or you do a wash and go commercial, it's worth $100,000. What are you going to do? I'd go, well, as long as it doesn't get in the way of me training, and I don't have to do the shoot on a Saturday when we're playing Newcastle away. I'm all right to do it, yeah. And I'll clear it with the club. But the club were in a predicament because, now they're doing commercial deals, but are they going to stop the players doing personal? There was a lot of grey water. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot of grey area. There was a lot of grey areas around then. Football clubs were learning as quickly as players were, but then there was more agents coming into the game because there was a lot more money in the game.
You're suddenly commodities, aren't you?
Opportunities.
You're absolute commodities because suddenly the eyes of the world are on you, whether that's Sky or whether it's whatever. You're suddenly, everyone knows everything about you.
Yeah, and we're on the front pages of the newspapers as well as we're on the back pages. Because
it doesn't help when you wear white suits at a cup final, does it?
No, but it's your take on that, isn't it? It's
to be positive though, you talk about your career being moments, and I think you've got some huge moments that other players would look at it and think, blimey, I wish I had those moments. And I do think that the cup final suits is one of those moments where you can have a load of cup finals that people never remember. People don't even remember it for the Cantona goal.
It's infamous, isn't it? It's not.
People don't even remember it for the Cantona goal, though. They remember it for you guys being the Spice Boys.
Yeah, it's funny, and you're 100% right. I mean, I was speaking to someone the other day, and they went to me, which cup final did you play in? And I went, the 96 cup final. They went, the white suits. It wasn't. And then I went, yeah, and they said to me, what score was it? I went, 1-0, United won. They went, who scored? I went, Eric Cantona.
And it wasn't a bad goal either.
No, it was a great goal. I mean, it was a 1-0 winner in the 83rd minute. You'd think it would be remembered, but it's not. It's remembered for the white suits.
It's you guys overshadowing it.
Yeah, but I'm always kind of batting the negative around that. And
yeah,
again,
but you looked like you were having fun as well. It wasn't like done po-faced. I mean, blimey, it looked like you were actually given the chance, all the people in the room, wear white suits, play a Wembley Cup final, everyone with hands up will go and do it.
Yeah, but if you'd asked me if I could, if I could have moments where I can go back in time, would it change the white suit? Of all the criticism we've had, and the question still, how many years ago? It's nearly 20 years. Over 30 years. 30
years, almost 30 years.
I'm still talking about it now. And I'm still trying to dismiss the myth of the Spice Boys.
So would you go back and not wear the suits?
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a negative, isn't it? It's not a...
I just think it's iconic, though, as well.
I get where you're coming from, yeah. I really do. But I think it spins us in a negative light. But to go right back and put ourselves back in 1996, we're learning. We're still learning. We were making the mistakes and learning from the mistakes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You had to make the mistakes to learn from them. And we made the mistake of wearing a white suit that day because had we have won, we might have looked the dog's nuts, mightn't we? And everyone had gone, oh, you look great on, you won the cup final, you had white suits on, you looked $1 million. What a great day that was. But everyone goes, why did you wear them white suits? Surely, but a white suit doesn't make you play better or doesn't make you play worse. I mean, there's a story. Alex Ferguson went back in his dressing room and went, if you don't beat this lot dressed like that, you need battering. Apparently to his Man United players, but who knows, what that did to them in that dressing room. I can't see it making any difference, to be honest. I mean, the final wasn't a great game. It was more of a game of chess. If you're a purist, you could dissect it and maybe pick some positives out of it. But, I took Giggsy out the game. Giggsy took me out the game. Nothing happened down that side. Nothing happened down the other side. There was very few chances, few and far between. And it was a mistake, really. David James coming for the corner, and it dropped into Eric Cantona's feet, and he scores a great goal. But everyone talks about the white suits. But again, it's at the end of it, we're dismissing the Spice Boys.
Did you keep your white suits?
I give it away.
Really?
Yeah, I was asked to take it to Soccer AM, and I give it to Helen Chamberlain. It wasn't a good memory. I give it to Helen Chamberlain. I mean, if you'd ask me from a financial reason, I wish I kept it because it's worth a right few quid now. But it is what it is. I give it to Helen Chamberlain. She's got it.
So was it a dream come true, obviously signing for Liverpool, being a Liverpool fan, but was it then an absolute nightmare leaving the football club after 4 years?
Yeah. So...
Because you're part of something you dreamed to be part of, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, all my life, grew up a Liverpool fan. First game was, I nicked a ticket from somewhere. Not nicked it as in someone offered me it.
It's just a rumour.
Yeah, and I went Man City at home, main stand. I remember the smell, the noise. My God, Dalglish was he was like Hollywood film star. He was just, they looked so much bigger, didn't they? It was
I grew up in Ipswich, and we weren't a bad team then. But Liverpool coming...
Mariner.
Yeah, that same ilk. But Liverpool coming to town was the ticket, and seeing these monsters, people like, as you say, Dalglish,
like
Souness in the middle.
Iconic. For us as football fans, they're iconic. The statue was amazing. They were superstars. But that's us as football fans. You know, we become superstars in a different light when the money came into it. We become like film stars, you know, but they were like football gods.
Yeah, they were proper football through and through. So leaving Liverpool.
Well, I grew up massive Liverpool fan. You know, the dream was getting the dream was getting bigger and bigger, as in further away as I was getting older and older. And you know, you get to 20. You know, signing for Liverpool from a 20-year-old playing for Marine Reserves, the dream couldn't be any further away, James. It was like, you know, this just ain't happening. And then all of a sudden you sign for Bolton. And then, you know, the biggest thing for me was having Bruce Rioch as a manager, because I developed under him. I learned very quickly from a football perspective, worked on all my weaknesses, stayed behind.
So he was a proper coach.
Yeah, but he managed my life as well. I mean, you know, I'll tell you a quick story. I signed for £100. My contract was £100 a week. And I got into the first team, FA Cup first round, Rochdale, Burnden Park. Bruce throws me in. I was on the bench the week before. Ironically, Chester, right? He threw me on for about 5 minutes in front of about 6,000. And I remember, like, I was nervous, right? Anyway, week after, I'm playing Rochdale FA Cup, score. Then I stay in the team. Then he takes me out the team. We have Liverpool, I think, third round. We beat Liverpool at Anfield, goes to a replay, beat Liverpool. I then get back in the team. I'm then in and out the team. Then I become established towards the end of the season. Then we get promoted. Beat Preston, we get promoted. We're now in the Championship. Bruce always said to me, you do well for me, I'll give you a new contract. Every time you do well, I'll give you a new contract. So it was okay. So my pay increased, £500. Then it went to 1,000. My last contract at Bolton, I was on £2,000 a week. So I'm on £1,000 a week. And I used to drive we used to train, you know, Hall's Mentholyptus, the sweet factory. We used to train in Bolton. The factory was in Bolton. We used to train there, right, on their bit of grass that they had, right? It used to stink. This sweet smell was horrible. But we used to train there. But we'd park at Burnden. We'd park our cars
and then walk up.
Yeah, we'd get changed. And we get the minibus, because it was like a funny one-way seat. We get the minibus up there. So on the way into training every day, there was a garage just up the road from Burnden Park. And it was an independent garage. And there was a little green Lotus Elan convertible in there, right? This thing used to wink at me every day, mate. It was like the best-looking sports car I'd ever seen in my life. And I thought, if I'm sign a contract where I can afford that car, I'm going to buy that car. My first car ever was a Mini Metro. I used to drive up and down the M62 to training. Anyway, I'm now on this £1,000 a week, and I walk into the garage after training. Me and Alan Stubbs, we kind of broke away from all the other younger lads, and we got ourselves in the team.
Scouts thing?
All the scouts. We broke away from them, as in our development. We went like this. They levelled out. So we're on this £1,000 a week, the two of us. Alan went and bought himself a sensible car. I went and bought myself this Lotus Elan. So the next day I'm driving this Lotus Elan in, and I'm like, I've made it. Right? I'm driving this Lotus Elan in. And I pull up into the car park. I go training, and after training, I'm getting a shower, whatever, and Bruce Rioch comes into the dressing room. He goes, who's the green Lotus Elan in the car park? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, Gaffer, it's mine. He went, come into my office when you finished getting dressed. I want to speak to you. So anyway, I go in the dressing room. So he's made a show of me in the dressing room in front of everyone. I now go into his office. He says, I've been on the phone to the garage where you bought the car from. Your cheque is waiting for you. He's going to give you every penny back. Get rid of that car. Go and buy yourself a sensible car. I'm like, yes, Gaffer. No problem, Gaffer. So I drive into the garage. The fella's just laughing his head off. He goes like that, gives me the cheque. I give him the car keys. Alan Stubbs takes me round the corner to the Peugeot garage. I bought myself something like a Peugeot 105 or something like that. I literally bought it like there and then, and drove home. Like I had to get insurance and all that kind of stuff. Drove it back a couple of days later. And he made me buy a sensible car. He made me get rid of this sports.
What was it like driving past the Lotus then the next day? Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely gutted. But you know what? At the time I was gutted. But I look back and think, life lessons. He wouldn't let me get carried away. He wouldn't let me buy this sports car. He was thinking of me safety. He was, developing me as a person. And over a period of 3 seasons I had with Bruce, I just learned so much. And then we went to the League Cup final with Bolton. We got promoted into the Premier League. Then Bruce left and went to Arsenal, manager of Arsenal. And then I signed for Liverpool. And in the meantime, I was playing for Ireland. I'd got into the Irish setup. And so in 3.5 seasons, I'd gone from playing for Marine Reserves to playing in the World Cup at Giant Stadium against Italy in front of 100,000.
Coming on for Ray Houghton.
To then, 6 months later, signing for Liverpool. So in a spell of just under 4 years, I'd gone from Marine Reserves to established international to playing for Liverpool, signing for Liverpool.
How did you deal with that from the kind of mental pressure side of it? And did you kind of retain all the mates that were with you when you were at Marine, or did life just completely change?
No. I feel bad for that. No, I left them behind. We kind of stayed in touch a little bit. I stayed in touch with the manager, Dave Ramsden. John Williams was the assistant manager. But no, it was just very quick. 4 years is a long time, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing what I'm doing, it's a very, very quick period. And you don't have time to think. And sometimes, that's the best way. You sink or swim, you're thrown in at the deep end and you've got to survive. And it goes right back to your very first question. You have to survive. And from a football, there's 2 aspects of it. There's Jason McAteer, the personality, and there's Jason McAteer, now the professional footballer. The professional footballer was growing in confidence all the time. If you come back from a World Cup, playing against Maldini, being around, the Irish setup, John Aldridge, Ronnie Whelan.
And a hero of an entire nation, by the way, at that stage.
And, I've come back a superstar.
Yeah.
Me, Gary Kelly and Phil Babb, the 3 amigos, we were nicknamed. We've come back like... I can't tell you, like, the injection of confidence that kind of experience gives you. But I'd gone back to Bolton, who were in the Championship. And I'm looking at these players in the Championship thinking, you cannot lace my boots. You can't get near me.
At least you're honest.
Yeah. I mean, you are not Maldini. You're not Franco Baresi. You're not Baggio. You're not... we played in the warm-up game. In a warm-up game in Hanover, before the World Cup in 94, we played against Germany. They were the world champions. They won the World Cup in 90. And they were all playing. Lothar Matthäus was playing. I think Karl-Heinz Klinsmann. They were all playing. Andries Bremer actually had been dropped. He'd scored the winner. He was playing left back. And he'd been dropped for a younger player. I don't know who was playing left back. But I tore him to pieces. Andries Bremer come up to me after the game, give me a shirt. I tore him to pieces, set one up for Cass, played really well. So, I played against Germany and, now in the World Cup. I come back thinking, there's not a player in this Championship who's a better player than me. There just isn't. And, I'm at the fittest I've ever been. I'm now developed. I'm the strongest I've ever been. I'm 24 years of age. I was 24 the day we played Italy in the Giant Stadium. It was my birthday, June the 18th.
Same as my son's. Same birthday as my son's.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He's creative as well. He's artistic
there
as well.
There you
yeah.
go, June the 18th.
Absolutely.
Paul McCartney, there you go.
You're right, yeah.
So, so as a physical aspect, fittest I've ever been, strongest I've ever been. It's between the ears. And, it's down to me then. It's who are you between the ears? Now I'm this person or this footballer who's better than everyone else because I've done this.
Were you a nightmare to deal with then?
No, I was Trigger.
So you still played the persona, but inside was thinking, right, I'm better than you. But you're still dumbing down.
Yeah. Mate, I'm 2 characters. I'm a chameleon. I'm playing Trigger when I need to in the dressing room and when I'm having a pint with the lads, because obviously with the Ireland setup, as much as I said that, football was developing and moving into a non-alcohol in the players' lounge. It took Ireland a little bit longer to catch up.
You then had Jack Charlton topping you up,
Yeah. We, that wasn't changing anytime soon. So, the lack of professionalism, well, right up to 2002, where Roy walked out, it was still happening in 2002 with the Ireland setup. We were so far behind the times. We were playing catch up, but we didn't want to catch up with Ireland. That's the thing. We were who we were, which is a completely different story. But certainly from domestic club football, that was changing. The old school going out for a pint after the game was changing. But going back to the two characters, I was very much the two characters. I was Jason McAteer Trigger, who was the life and soul of the party, to going on the pitch thinking, I'm the best player on this pitch. Then I got my move to Liverpool. 95, I moved to Liverpool. Then between the ears, it kind of goes a little bit, because I'm now sitting in the dressing room, and this is no disrespect to the Bolton players or who I played against in the Championship, but now I'm playing for Liverpool, and the responsibility is different, mate. I've never felt a stress and a pressure like it to win. You cannot lose. In fact, you can't even give the ball away. It's a completely different environment. So in between the ears, when I'm telling myself I'm the best player ever, I'm now thinking, I'm sitting with John Barnes and Ian Rush, and Jan Molby was in the dressing room, Ronnie was around, all these top young kids, Redknapp, Fowler, McManaman, James. I'm now thinking, how do I survive in this dressing room? That little voice in my head telling me I'm the best player ever, now turning around and going, ooh, he's some player, Robbie Fowler, isn't he? Jamie's a good player, isn't he? They're all like, I've now got to, adapt from a professional point of view. As Trigger will take care of himself, and he did in that dressing room. That everyone loved Trigger, everyone wanted a bit of Trigger. So he survived. But how was I going to survive professionally? Now it's like, you've got to knuckle down and step it up.
Is it fair of me to say that team should have achieved more than it did?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you reel those names off, you think, blimey, there's superstars wherever you look. And I know United were good. And I know United won most things, and if they didn't, Arsenal did. But
we were a good team, mate.
But that cast list is incredible.
Yeah, we were a good team. And when I signed, probably 6 or 7 games into the season, we had United probably 5 or 6 games after I signed. We battered them at Anfield. We won 2-0. You remember Robbie scored, free kick. Then McManaman went on a run inside to Robbie, jinked, pulled it back inside. Gary Neville got sent for a pie. He weren't that good, Gary Neville, by the way. And then he dinked Schmeichel. And then we go to Old Trafford and draw 2-2. We were a better team, 95. There was a big turning point, 95. They won the league. But it planted something in their DNA. Had it been us, whatever was planted would have been planted with us, and I think we would have gone on.
It was that important, that pivotal.
It was such a fine margin, yeah. And I think what we were, everyone criticises Evo so Roy Evans, he was the manager with Ronnie Moran, he was a coach. Doug Livermore was there. Joe Corrigan was goalkeeper coach. He gets criticised for lack of authority and lack of sort of personal management with the players. People said he was too much of a soft touch. He wasn't. What I would say from a professional point of view, I think Alex Ferguson was more pragmatic when he needed to be, where our DNA was attack. If you look at the players, you had me down the right, we went to 3 at the back. You had Razor who had a wand of a left foot, but just wanted to get on the ball and play. Scalo was a bit, wanted to come into the midfield with the ball. Babsy was probably the out-and-out defender, but was in and out the team. And then you'd have Rob Jones, Stick Bjornaby, just wanted to go that way. I just wanted to go that way. You'd have Jamie, who just wanted to get on the ball and play. Barnesy would just play. And then you'd have McManaman just that way. Fowler that way. Collymore that way. you know, we'd go 1-0 up. We'd want to go 2-0. We want to go 3-0. We were the entertainers. We wanted to entertain. Where Man United, I think with them and with Alex being pragmatic in the right way, 1-0 up, they'd shut up shop with half an hour.
They just wanted to win, didn't they? It was about winning.
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to win. We just wanted to do it in a different way. But I think they figured the formula out quicker than us, where you had to be pragmatic at times. And, you know, we'd never settle for a 1-0. And what would happen, it would cost us sometimes. Coventry at home, I remember. Wimbledon away, I remember. You know, 1-0 up, 2-0 up, 2-2. Game would end up 2-2, drop 2 points. You know, we'd be winning 1-0, we'd end up losing 2-1. 2 stupid goals. Lack of concentration. Not being pragmatic enough in moments of the game. Our game management wasn't great. And I think if you wanted to aim a criticism at Roy, I'd rather you point the finger at him for game management rather than lack of discipline, because we loved him. He was such a top coach, top manager, who, by the way, had the T-shirt. He had the T-shirt. There's nothing in the game of football that he hasn't done. And it was a shame how it ended for him. But he was a victim of the club moving in a different direction. That's what he was a victim of. But you're right, we should have won more, but it's ifs and buts, isn't it?
In terms of moving in the right direction and taking you back to the Lotus Elan, did you have a silly car at Liverpool when you were a Spice Boy?
Yeah.
Well, I say a silly car. It would have been a car that I would be dreaming of driving, probably. But you know.
I bought a BMW convertible. That was nice. And then my cars kind of changed with the times. James, with the times. I bought a nice Porsche one day. Biggest mistake I ever made with buying cars was I bought a Ferrari, walked into a garage in Wilmslow, bought a Ferrari, and then spun it on a roundabout, sold it 6 months later and lost 40 grand. God, I was gutted. It was a nice car.
Red?
No, silver. Maranello, silver. Nice. But it was a mistake. Got carried away.
I remember because when...
I'm quite impulsive.
It was the same era as Teddy Sheringham coming to United, and they had rubbish cars in the car park then. Then he arrived in a Maranello.
Okay.
So they then all had Maranello.
Probably the one I had sent
might
back to the
be
garage.
The one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no wonder that garage is still going.
To get serious again.
Yeah.
And to take us back 10 minutes, what was it like leaving all that? Because your eyes light up when you talk about Liverpool. You know, it's like that's where you want to be if you were given a chance to have your time again. Much like not wearing the white suits.
Honestly, James, it's something I'll never get over. I know it's mad to think, but I'm still not over it. It still upsets me now. Like when I think back, I miss football. I miss playing. You know, desperately miss playing. I miss all my life I've grew up in an environment where winning at all costs. So, my dad brought me up a certain way, my lifestyle, my family. If you're not competing to win, what's the point? You know, this thing in schools now where it's like it's taking part that counts. It's not. You've got to have an element of win, and you know, maybe I'll draw the lines at maybe sometimes how we do it.
Yeah.
You know, but ultimately it's about winning. It's about winning, and you know, I then ended up in the environment I wanted to end up in. And then I stayed there through hard work and desire and determination and willpower. I stayed there in a very cutthroat industry at the time. You know, you had to survive again. I had to figure it out very quickly. And I did that. And all the obstacles that were sent my way, I figured it out. So, hence why, my career, it did what it did. But I was in an industry where it's winning at all costs, and when you play for Liverpool, it's ranked up again. You can't lose. You're this human being who is conditioned to win. And as football changed, the medical side of things in the early 90s when I went in, they were sticking injections in your backside to get you out to play. There was no. What's he going to be like in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, 20 years' time? Oh, in 40 years' time, he needs a knee replacement, an hip replacement. One of the lads I played with for years, top player, just had a knee replacement. He's younger than me. There's no... It's about winning.
It was getting on the pitch and winning, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all about winning. So it's like a drug. Never taken drugs in my life. My mum was part of a drug service. No, like I kind of like grew up like, even when I finished it, I'd let her down if I ever take drugs. So I just don't do it. And I also think I'll be the idiot who does it for the first time and dies. So I just don't do it. So, you know, this environment you're in is the drug. It's the drug. You're addicted to it. You're addicted to playing, to the feeling of running out, you know, to the adulation, to the massage of the ego, to the scoring the goals, to winning football matches, to the camaraderie.
To pulling on that famous red shirt, and then someone saying that you've got to pull on a different colour shirt, which isn't that red shirt. And
that broke my heart.
Yeah, I can imagine just the esteem that people, even the way that people look at you locally. You're no longer a Liverpool player.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I'm sure we'll get on to Jurgen. You know, going back to him, I hope he's made the right decision, because when you leave that football club, no matter where you go, it's not the same.
Well, let's do Jurgen now then.
You want to go back to leaving Liverpool later?
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
Yeah, but just because you mentioned Jurgen, and people are talking about him, obsessed him, I'm probably going to give you this side of the East Lancs Road perspective rather than your side of the East Lancs Road. And I'm not from Manchester, but I live here. I've lived here a long, long time. I think people are making way too much of it. Am I wrong?
In what respect?
In terms of what he's achieved, how long he's been there, what he's won. I think he's a great, great coach, but maybe I'm seeing things through Pep Guardiola being on our doorstep here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's what you know.
But I haven't played. You've played.
You
know what that club's about. You know what that dressing room is about. You know what he's about. You know stuff about Jurgen Klopp that I don't even know about.
I'm very cynical of the modern game. I mean, we're going off on another tangent as well, aren't we? I'm very cynical. Being inside the ropes, you can see how things are manipulated, how, you know, things get to government level, you know, investment, recruitment, agents. You know, the game has moved again, you know, through my time which was great, and I'd never change it because I loved every minute of it. There's aspects, obviously, I might tweak and stuff, but I think over the last 10 years, the game has moved into a completely different direction. And, you know, the business side of things, again, I mentioned it, you know, around Sky's money, 92, then, you know, 95, 96, 97, commercially, football clubs are seeing big investments, opportunities. So, you know, partnerships are now coming in. The world gets smaller because we can jump on a plane, and scouting then gets smaller because we can go and scout in Brazil and all that. So everything changed. The last 10 years, you know, whereas football clubs were making, I don't know, 300 million, they're now making 600 million. You know what I mean? And transfer fees would reflect that. So, you know, I'm very cynical how Manchester City have done it. I can only speak for what I've seen from a Liverpool perspective. And obviously Manchester City right now, you know, aren't guilty. So fair play to them. You know, they've done a wonderful job, and I think it's great, you know, what's happened at Manchester City. And if you're asking me Manchester, I'd go City before United. So, you know, it's...
No surprise there.
Yeah. But from a Liverpool point of view, you know, being heavily involved in the football club, we've been chasing Manchester City. And if you're talking from a modern game, because I don't... Going back to Jurgen, I don't think you can put him in the brackets of the greatest ever Liverpool manager. I mean, if you look at what, you know, Paisley for me is the greatest Liverpool manager.
Was it 20 trophies in 9 seasons?
Frightening. And then you'd put Shankly, who was the godfather of the football club.
Who established the DNA and everything like that, yeah.
And for a DNA to be established and last so long, which for me would have been up to the Gerard Houllier thing. And that's why it hurt me a little bit, but we'll go back to that in a minute. So, yeah, then put Shankly. Fagan wasn't there long enough. Then I'd put Kenny. I mean, if you think Kenny was a Michael Thomas, a John Barnes cross he shouldn't have crossed, Michael Thomas scoring last second away from a double, and then a John Aldridge missed penalty against Wimbledon, double. He was that close, but what he did was phenomenal. I'd then put Kenny, but from the modern era of football for me was the last 10 years. You know, what Jurgen's done to compete in this modern world of football is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. You know, with the way he's handled his recruitment, his job, blueprint laid down from FSG, you know, how he's got to manage the club from their perspective, because they're completely different owners from state-owned. He's done a wonderful job. And then if you look at the infrastructure, behind. Melwood's gone now, which was really sad, but they've just got it back. They've moved into a new training ground. They've built 2 new stands. The infrastructure of the football club. The commercial aspects have gone blue chip now. So, all the partners are right up there. So they're very healthy from that point of view. The academy now is the best it's ever run. We've always brought players through, like Fowler, McManaman, Owen. But now, you just look at the production line, because they've had to, really. So you've got Curtis Jones, Trent Alexander-Arnold. You could throw Harvey Elliott in there because we bought him when he was 16. You now look at, the youth players coming through and the infrastructure there as well. He's done a phenomenal job.
So how does he give that all up, and why?
Don't get it. I do get it, because Jurgen, like I've said, he doesn't just manage the first team. He's across everything, right through that football club. And obviously he's the little prism of sporting director. Then you've got Michael Edwards. So you've got Michael Edwards, who was obviously not there now, but he, when it was at its best, it was Michael Edwards, Mike Gordon, who was from FSG, and then you've got Jurgen. That little prism was remarkable, what they did, what they produced. And obviously that's gone now. That's gone. So Michael Edwards is gone. Mike Gordon's now sort of taken a step back. And now you've got Jurgen, who's decided to no longer compete. And I just, I understand Jurgen when he said he's got tired, and it's a very, very demanding, tough job. The modern game now demands 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, I can understand him getting to this point of life. He's only a few years older than me, having a bit of reflection. He's just had grandchildren. He doesn't spend a lot of time at home. It's not his native country. He's Germany. He's been there, 7 years, nearly 8 years. He's had to do a rebuild, but also he's been chasing City as well. So he's had to get it right more often than not. And that just takes its toll. So, I want to give him his explanation. I want to give it to him. But I just hope he doesn't regret it. Because from my experience and speaking to everyone that's been at Liverpool, once you leave, first of all, it's very, very difficult to get back. Only like a Rush and an Owen, a Rush and a Fowler have had the opportunity, but very few people get to go back. And I just hope he doesn't regret it. Because I know people who spent a lot of time with Shankly after he left, and he regretted every day he left. Every single day he left, he regretted. And I just hope for Jurgen's sake it doesn't play out that way.
The romantics would say it's the incentive for the players to go and win 4 trophies. The realists would probably say that some people in that dressing room thinking, thank goodness he's going, because it just means life might be a little more comfortable for me. Because he's on you, isn't he?
The demands.
Yeah.
No, because it's the life you buy into. It's a back. See, for me, winning at all costs back then was only relative to what we had, as in what they knew. Football now is like it's expanded tenfold, this modern game, hasn't it? So the players now, they know if they want longevity, they can't drink. They can't drink like we did. They have to train differently. They have to respect being taken out the team. Being rested now is very much on the forefront. You couldn't rest a player in my day. It's like, what? If Roy Evans said to me, I'm resting you, I'd be like, are you sure? I mean, I remember cutting my head open, having 13 stitches and wanting to go back on.
Is that the scar there?
Yeah, the scar there. 13 stitches, Nottingham Forest, Dean Saunders, wallop. And I'm like, just strap me up. Mark Leather, he was the physio, just put a bandage on it. Because my fear was, I'm not going to be able to play next week. So I want to play. I can't miss a game, because if I'm out the team, someone's going to get in, and I'm going to have to wait to get back in. So the mentality, everything's changed. So the mentality of footballers now, they buy into it. Don't get me wrong, he exhausts them. The players at Liverpool are exhausted, but that's the level you've got to be at if you want to chase City. These two teams, you see it with single sports, don't you? You see it with likes of Federer and Nadal. You could throw Djokovic in there as well. They pushed each other to heights tennis has never seen before. Racing car drivers did it, didn't they? They've done it all over the years. You have this rivalry. They will push and push and push and push and push and push, and you'll produce data you've never seen before. And that's what City and Liverpool have done. But Liverpool have had to do it a different way than City.
Yeah, they have. Does that mean that Xabi Alonso is the natural successor? Because everyone, certainly if you believe the odds, I mean, blimey, he's overwhelming favourite to be the next manager. And what he's done he's torn up the league in Germany. and he understands the system that you love and know. So is that a no-brainer?
Xabi Alonso for me is a bit of, listen, from a data and a statistical point of view, it depends, doesn't it? I think there's a lot of boxes to tick, pros and cons. I think one of the biggest pros, he's got an affection with Liverpool because he played there. He was a bit of a darling, bit of a cult hero. So he gets the football club. I think, that's a big plus point. The negatives for me is he plays a different system to what Jurgen's played. So that's a gamble, because I think for a manager, whatever brings you success, which he's got at Dortmund, which he's got at Leverkusen, why is he going to go somewhere else and then all of a sudden rip his philosophy up? It's kind of like, well, I am who I am, and this is what's brought me success. So why would I change it? I know what I'm doing. I know how to work with the team in this formation, and it brings me the best results. So he's going to go to Liverpool. For me, he's going to want to go 3 at the back. Liverpool aren't 3 at the back. You can argue it's a bit of a hybrid, but really they are 4 at the back still. So also he likes a lot of short passes, where Liverpool actually do mix it up. Liverpool have got a nice balance between going long and short. Xabi plays a lot. Statistically, he's in the best in the Bundesliga at short passes. So he's going to have to change that, because he's got players at Liverpool who are going to have to adapt. So that's a bit of a negative. The other negative is he's never managed in the Premier League, Bundesliga. No disrespect to that, but it's not week in, week out the challenges the Premier League brings. He's relatively new to his managerial career. The other negative is he's going into a dressing room which has got a lot more bigger egos than Leverkusen. You're going to have to deal with that. And the other thing as well is he's never spent 70, 80 million, where he's going to have to now. So now we're dealing with the recruitment side of things. So is he going to go into Liverpool and be able to spend 80 million and find the right player? If Mo Salah leaves at the end of the season, is he going to be able to do that? So the other negative as well, there's no Michael Edwards, there's no sporting director there. So he's going to have to bring a sporting director with him that he trusts. Whether he brings the one from Leverkusen, I don't know. The other one is Mike Gordon's made a step back, and plus, can he work within the restraints of FSG? He's never done that before. You can argue a lot of managers out there probably have ticking them same boxes. But it doesn't necessarily make him the clear-cut favourite to me. There's lots of negatives to the.
You haven't named a single positive yet. So who
positive for me is he's been at Liverpool. Positive is he's doing very well this season. He's unbeaten still in the Bundesliga, isn't he? Which is fantastic. 2, he's a very young manager he's forward thinking, so he possibly could adapt.
So who would you put your money on? Who would you prefer then? Because it sounds like Xabi Alonso doesn't tick all the right boxes for you. Is there anyone who you'd suggest would be a better fit? Is it De Zerbi at Brighton, or is it? I
don't think Jurgen is leaving at a time that's really helped Liverpool, to be honest. Usually when a job, when Sir Alex went, there was a lot of managers out there, wasn't there, that he could pick from, and even like through the years, Moyes went, then there was, you probably, I've got Ancelotti or Mourinho was around, or managers like this. Right now, there's not a pool of managers like Mourinho, big gamble. Ancelotti's tied up at Madrid, probably now is on that cusp. Mancini, he's doing well at Saudi. Not the money aspect, he's probably not going to attract him. So where are we going to go? De Zerbi, for me, I've got this conspiracy theory that Manchester City have brought Pep in. Manchester City and Pep have brought De Zerbi to the Premier League to take over from Pep. I think he's Man City's man. So I don't know whether that's going to be viable. But De Zerbi's at the forefront. But I don't think you're going to get him. For me, Postecoglou ticks a lot more boxes than Xabi at the minute. Listen, I know Xabi. I'd love him to come to Liverpool. I'm not pushing him away. I just, you're asking me from a professional point of view. I just think Postecoglou, we would have managed in the Premier League for a year, so he knows what he's doing. In that respect, he's a year ahead of Xabi on that respect. I think he plays a more similar type of football than Xabi. I think he's a bit older. I think his CV has sort of got a lot more on it to deal with what he needs to with Liverpool. I like him dealing with the media, and I think he speaks well, and I think he's charismatic, and I think Liverpool need one of them kind of managers. I think he's more extrovert than Xavi. I think Xavi an introvert. Plus, Xavi only works with the first team, I believe, at Leverkusen. He doesn't filter down through the football club. He's very much focused on, his squad, first team squad. Where I think Postecoglou would be across a lot of things at the football club. The only thing I would question is if he jumped ship right now would be his integrity, because he's given everything to Tottenham. I want to take, so maybe a little bit, but I could understand if Liverpool come knocking, it'd be a hard ask not to go, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it really would.
And Daniel would probably want a fortune.
Yeah, he'd make it work.
Yes, I agree with you, James. Yeah, Daniel would make it work. He would. So for me, I think Ange ticks a few more boxes than Xavi. Ticks a few more boxes.
We could talk for ages, and we can't because life moves on, but I want to get a couple more moments before we finish. And I want to talk about leaving Liverpool. But I think I want to go with the moments first, because you talk about the clock and you talk about 20 years, 30 years. It's 22 years almost since Saipan, and yet you were in the middle of the biggest story in the world back then. And
sitting next to the biggest story in the world when it happened, yeah.
And I imagine there isn't a day go by where people won't want to talk to you about what happened then. Bearing in mind, we're talking about a small country, not prepared for a World Cup, and yet two massive figures in Mick McCarthy and Roy Keane disintegrating almost in front of your eyes.
I mean, the relationship was toxic and confrontational way before the actual blow-up.
Yeah, but two hard men.
Yeah, very old school, yeah. It came at a time where you think you've probably seen everything in football. And I mean, my career has took me on massive highs and massive lows. I mean, you spoke about it before. Leaving Liverpool was the lowest point. I mean, I was going to quit. I was going to quit football. I got to Blackburn and I was going to quit. And
So what stopped you quitting it?
So now you want to go back to there?
No, I didn't expect you to say that.
Well, leaving Liverpool. I was out the team. The club was moving in a different direction. For me, Gerard Houllier had come into the football club with a preperception that we were just out all the time and partying and enjoying ourselves, and we weren't applying ourselves in the right manner. And he was wrong. Robbie, you'd have to drag Robbie off the training pitch. Jamie, Macca, you'd have to drag us off. We loved being around the training ground. We loved playing for Liverpool. It was not our job, it was our dream. So when people say to us, oh, you would this, that, that wasn't the case. We were footballers. We loved playing football. It's the greatest job in the world, playing for our club. We were Liverpool fans. I mean, you can argue Robbie and Macca were Everton fans, but still, Merseyside, Liverpool. And we were close. We were very close. We were like a family. I know it's a bit cliche, but we were all the same age. And the other thing as well, James, is we're all going through this change of football together. And, and just to delve into something, right? We're 25, 26, 27 years of age, right? That was the bracket, right? Entering into a new world of football where we're trying to adjust. We're trying to adjust to all this change. And getting criticism from every angle. You shouldn't be doing this modelling. You're on too much money. This is happening. Why aren't you winning games? We're at Liverpool. We don't do it. So it was like, boof, boof, boof. So we're trying to adapt. We're trying to adjust. We're trying to find ourselves, right? But also the 90s was a massive change from an entertainment point of view. So the boy bands, the girl bands, all this kind of stuff. And I'll tell you now, right? We become friends with pop stars because we were all going through the same stress, the same problems, trying to live in a world that was demanding a lot from us, and we didn't know how to cope. There was no counsellors, there was no sports psychologists, there was no one to turn to. We were entering this new world. So, I'd speak to Mel from Spice Girls, and, she would have her own problems. Like, we're all human beings, deaths in families, so-and-so's. Let's make a scenario. Melanie's granddad might have died, so she rings me and to cope because there's a trust element there, because she knows I'm not going to go to the newspapers, because I know the industry, I know this, and we're the same age, and we're all trying to cope. you know, and Jamie, you know, the same with the kind of Louise, and like, you know, there's an element of that with David Beckham and, you know, Ian at the so we're not just going out with them because we want to elevate ourselves to another level. We're actually friends with them because we can relate, and we're trying to get through this situation the best we can with trust, and their knowledge of doing something can help that they're getting. They might be able to help us and this and that. And, you know, losing a football match at Liverpool was just like, you couldn't go out. So what you do? You know, it was tough. It was a tough place to be, mate, with no help, because there's no counsellors, there's no psychologists, there's nothing. You've got to figure it out yourself. It's tough. So, yeah. So going back to, where were we?
I was going to ask you about what Houllier said to you when he decided enough was enough, because it must have been his decision, not your decision.
Yeah, so the club has changed, and, you know, foreigners are coming in. So, you know, Liverpool was changing. The boot room had gone, and now Roy had left. So for me, Roy was my ally. He was the player who bought me. He was the manager who bought me, and I was very close to him. And, you know, he lost control of what he needed to be in control of, which was the club and the football and the team. And Gerrard had come in, and because, you know, he'd come in, the ideas were changing. The football club was moving in his direction. And there was conflict there between Roy's managerial and what he knew, and Gerard Houlier's from where he'd come from. The two of them just clashed. It was never going to work. It was never, ever going to work. And the irony of it was where I fit into them two was we played, it was either Valencia or Celta Vigo away in Europe. And we'd had our pre-match meal, and the phone went. And Tony Warner, my room partner, he was the reserve team guy, he took the call. Yeah, Gaffer, no, Gaffer, yeah, I'll tell him. Puts the phone down. And it's the phone call you never want, because, you know, Gaffer wants to see you in his room. So we're in the hotel, and I go up to his room, I knock on the door, I go in, and there was a broken man standing in front of me. It was Roy Evans, broken man. He says to me, listen, you're not going to play tonight. Fuming. I'm like, why? Why am I not playing? Why am I not playing? Why you not picked me? And he just went to me, Gerrard wants Patrick Berger to play. I can't fight anymore. I'm done. It's over. That's it. That's me finished with the football club. I'm done. I can't fight anymore. And I'm going to apologise to you now for not fighting your corner. I want you to play. So I've gone now from being fuming, dropped, to now looking at this man who I loved as my football manager, now going, Gaffer, you can't pack it in. I'm trying to talk him round. Anyway, conversation leads one thing to the other. I'm now like left his room, like broken myself. I'm like, Tony Warner, he's quitting. Gaffer's quitting. No, he'll be all right. Listen, I can't. No, I'm telling you, the Gaffer's quitting straight. Anyway, play the game, get on, last 20 minutes, whatever. We go back, and he quits 4 days later. 4 days later, maybe you'd have to look at the record books. Whoever we played in Europe, maybe a week later, he comes into the dressing room. We're at Melwood, and he come in. Oh, mate, it was one of the saddest days ever. He come in, and this man just breaks down crying in front of all the lads in the dressing room. That's it. I'm done. Gerrard's going to take over. Give him your best. Give everything you got for Gerrard. I'm done. I'm at the football club. And something inside me, like Ronnie Moran had just been released a few months earlier. Then Roy's now gone. I'm in and out the team. Gerard Houllier has changed the whole dynamics of the football club and the philosophy and the ethos. And I'm fighting for my international career as well, because I'm in and out the team international-wise, because I'm not playing at club level. And I'm just a little bit lost. And then, out of the blue, I get a phone call off Brian Kidd, who's, you know him, he's the nicest fella in the world. Now manager of Blackburn Rovers, trying to get me to go to Blackburn. And I'm like, kiddo, I don't know what to do. It's like my club. Listen, you need to be playing. And he taught me into it. Kiddo taught me into it. And, you know, sometimes your heart rules your head rules your heart. And this time around, my head was saying, you know, for your football career, you don't want to sit on the bench. You don't, it's not you. It doesn't matter if it's Liverpool, you're hearty, you never want to leave. The dream is you see out your career. It's not like that. There's no loyalty in this game. You know, this first time I'd seen this loyalty thing, and it's just gone. You know, so-and-so's left. He's been kicked out. Robbie's on his way. Macca's going to Madrid. You're doing it. Like, you know, you're getting pushed out. Rob Jones got it. You know, you just don't fit in now. So go somewhere where, I know, you know, we all want to be liked, don't we? We all want to be loved. And kiddos like that with these big, wide open arms going, come to me. And in the end, you know, I go and see the gaffer, Gerard Doulier, and I says, listen, what's the story with Blackburn? Yeah, we've had £4 million. You know, we've accepted the bid, but I don't want you to leave. Why don't you want me to leave? Because, you know, you're part of my plans. Well, what part of my plans are? Well, you know, you can fight for your position. And I'm like, well, I've kind of done that over the last 3 or 4 months, and I'm still not getting anywhere near your team. Roy Evans' team, I was playing. Your team now, Roy's gone. I'm not playing. I can't guarantee your first team football, so it's up to you, you know, but you can stay if you want. On the phone to Kiddo, Kiddo's got to come. So I left. And you know what, James? I'd done the press conference in front of all the journalists, Blackburn Rovers, God knows what they must have thought. And I started crying my eyes out in the press conference.
Great.
I cried my eyes out in the press conference. And the headlines the next day in one of the papers, the Mirror, I think, was McAteers.
Good though.
Great headline.
It's a great headline.
Great line.
Yeah, it is.
And the picture is me wiping a tear away. Like, I'm like that, wiping a tear away.
So did you already think you'd made the worst decision in your life, or was it just...
Yeah. It dawned on me, like... Do you know what that moment was? That was that saturation moment where it's like, I can't go back. I cannot now go, I'm going back.
You can't undo it at all, no.
I'm going to go back. It was done. It was done. That was it. I'd signed a contract. I was done. I wasn't going back. The fee was done. Everything was done. Peony Zarvi was my agent. That's another story. So, you know, as a low, which was going back to your question, I'm now 6 months into my Blackburn career. My personal life was unraveling. You know, all kinds of things were going on in my personal life. Had a couple of deaths, which was very hard to deal with, which again is a different story. So then Brian Kidd going, Graham Souness coming in, who couldn't have been any more the worst manager I ever needed at that time. Compassion is not something Graham has. And I sat there one day and thought, I can't do it anymore, packing in. And I just went through the motions, and just before I knew it, Reedy was ringing me at Sunderland, and I went to Sunderland. Started again.
Form-wise, so did you ever play as well as you did at Liverpool?
No, never. I was in it, like, you know, I'd turn up for some games and like man of the match performances and all that, but consistently, oh my God, I'd play, you know, just to say how much Liverpool meant for me. I turned Kenny down at Blackburn. He triggered the clause at Bolton, and I turned Kenny down, and I went for talks at Liverpool, and I was always signing for Liverpool. Once I knew that deal was on the table, I was going to go, so I went, and I'm sitting with my agent, and Roy Evans is trying to sell the football club to me. I'm like, so anyway, they say, right, we need to speak about wages, like contract. So I said in the meeting, it's nothing to do with me, this. I just said to my agent, don't mess it up. And I went out into the corridor, and I walked up and down the corridors at the old main stand, all the trophies, the pictures on the walls. And I got called back in 10 minutes later, and it was done. I didn't even know how much I'd signed for. And there was a structure at the time. I think we signed for, it was 12 grand a week. So I'd gone from 2 to 12. I know, which is a massive
Great.
Yeah.
And that's old money as well. So
yeah.
that's
big money.
Yeah.
And then, you know, but if he'd have gone in back in the room and he'd gone, I've got you a grand a week, I'd gone, brilliant. But when did I start playing? I literally would have played for nothing. And that's not a word of a lie. That's not a word of a lie. And so when I left, oh my God, it broke my heart, yeah. I'm still not over it today. I still look back and think, do you know what? I still look back and think, you should have stayed a little bit longer. Just seeing how it worked out. And I didn't.
And I don't want to pay lip service to things like mental health, which are really, really important issues, and we could do that in another chat, and I hope we will do. But was that when you realised being a footballer maybe wasn't everything it was cracked up to be, or that there were pressures and things, there were lows as well as highs?
It become a job.
Yeah. A chore.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at Liverpool, you know, the lows were like, obviously we lost the cup final and we missed out on the league by a couple of points. You know, I finished fourth, fourth, I think, my 4 seasons. So we were close. We were always close, but they were the disappointments and stuff. But you know, the negatives of life were you know, you just deal with it. You just get on with it. And I was younger as well, and it was different. And you know, just was what it was, you know. But when I went to Blackburn, you know, I just had my first child. I was in a heavy relationship, strong relationship. And then a couple of things happened in my personal life. I lost a couple of family members. They died within 6 weeks of each other. And I struggled. Where I struggled there was, you know, you live a very privileged life as a footballer. You're earning thousands of pounds a week. But, you know, the positives are you've got your hands on doctors, surgeons, the best surgeons in the land, because we know them, because, you know, they look after us, the doctors. And again, football has moved on. You know, now it was like we're entering, you know, we're now in 2001. So, you know, from 1990, you know, where we get sent to the doctors round the corner, now we've got a doctor on site. It's like full-time doctor and physios, 3 physios and masseurs. So we're into that. So, you know, I've got all these things, and I'm looking at someone who's passing away, and I cannot save their life. And I struggled with it for years. Oh, God, I struggled. Yeah. Just having all this power and all this help, and you can't keep someone alive. I struggled with that.
Yeah.
I struggled for years. So, yeah, so them problems were now affecting me, and mentally, my mental health was proper struggling. But where football didn't get up to speed, there was no counsellors and no psychologists, and there was no help. You know, Phil Batty was my counsellor. He was the club doctor at Blackburn. He was my counsellor. He was, you know, yeah. So,
but I always wondered back then, and I thought about it. A job, but the dressing rooms were lots of lonely blokes who weren't admitting to each other they were struggling. That's fair, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know what I think as well? I think the demands of success weighed a lot heavier, because the demands were more coming into like sort of the early 2000s. You know, they were big, you know, through the 90s. Of course, winning the league was a massive thing, but it was from like a fan's perspective. But for a club now, you know, winning the league from a business point of view was massive. So the demands were more. There was the demands to win was more and more and more, and it weighed heavy on the players, I think. You know, and you know, from a mental health aspect, yeah, it didn't help. Yeah. I
want to just end on Saipan, because I'm fascinated by it, and I want to ask you about the feeling between the players that are there. Has that bonded you since? That, you know, the people that are in that room that shared that moment, that were actually there?
Well, going back to my career, you know, I'd mentioned, you know, massive highs, massive lows.
I'm not sure where that is in with that, because it's just something completely different and extraordinary.
That's what I'm going to say, yeah. I was now... So 94, when I went to the World Cup, I'm a young kid. Yeah. And I'm like number 21. And I've gone for the experience.
And you're loving it.
Mate, it was like a stag. It was the best 6 weeks of my life. I was in America when we were going to Disneyland and all kinds. It was like, and the expectation of an Irish country as a nation is success is getting out the group. But, you know, the success really is qualifying for the tournament.
Just getting there, yeah.
Party time, you know. But we got out the group. We come back heroes, which we did, you know. I mentioned it before. You know, I'm coming back from 94, just to touch on, you know, from the massive highs where we are, I come back like I can't tell you, a superstar in Ireland. Me, Gary Kelly and Phil Babb, like we were doing everything. The Late Show, we were doing everything. We were superstars. We were the young kids of an aging team. But we were just the nation's darlings. I can't tell you that, like, where we were thrust was just beyond belief. This pedestal we were put on. Again, you got to deal with that, which was tough. So I'm now 2002. I'm now a senior pro.
8 years on.
8 years on, I'm a senior pro in a national team with a new manager in a different era of football, with different responsibilities. You know, I'm not going there for a good laugh now. You know, it's funny, football, because the experience of going to an FA Cup final, for me, it was, I got to the League Cup final, which is massively important as a footballer's development, top footballer development, because that experience leaves you wanting more. So that becomes your drive then. I want to play it again. I want to come to Wembley again. I want to play in this cup final because it's brilliant. You know, I did it again in the playoff final. I did it again in the FA Cup final. World Cup final 94 was like, for your country, it's like, I want to do this again. We missed out on the Euros playoffs, missed out on the World Cup 98 playoffs, missed out 2000 Euros playoffs. We're now drawn in a group with Portugal and Holland trying to get to the World Cup finals in 2002. Never expected to get out the group, you know. But what Mick had done, he's kind of got this team at the perfect storm. It's like all the younger players had experience from sort of 98, really, maybe 97. Jack left in 96. So Mick then changed the team. It's a bit of an evolution. It's like the likes of Robbie Keane, Duffer, Gary Breen, Dunny, Shea. They'd now all taken over the old guard. They'd gone with Jack. So Mick now, all that experience of missing out on playoffs, all these younger players were now playing in their Premier League teams as established players, but he's got a lovely blend of experience with the likes of me, Roy, Quinny, other players, a few more older players. He's got this lovely blend. We were at the right time to qualify. So everyone's expectations was no, we're not qualifying. But if you look and delve into it, it was the right time to have a right good go at it.
And then they leave Jason McAteer free on the left-hand side.
And I scored
against Holland.
against Holland.
Yeah.
We get to the finals.
Another moment, by the way. People would trade your moments.
Yeah.
I think you should have won more as a player, but some of the moments you've had are incredible.
Yeah. Mental moments, and I've been very blessed to be given them moments. And I look back now, and some players go through a career, and they don't have any moments. I've been blessed with
You've got
lots
a string
of
them.
Yeah. But this team was actually ripe to qualify. It was ready to qualify, and we delivered. We got there. We got there. Ireland should never qualify for any tournament, mate. They shouldn't. But because of our history and our endeavour and our whatever, which is part of our DNA, which plays into the narrative of what I'm going to say to you, it makes us who we are. It makes us who we are. And, we're not England. We don't get treated like England. We don't get the perks. We don't get treated like royalty. We're very much the dog and duck to the glossy England, whatever. And you've got to manage them expectations. And we go to Saipan, and, what we were given and what happened to us, it didn't meet certain players' expectations. Now, I can understand you should strive for them expectations to become better, and you should grasp it. But sometimes you can take away psychologically, you can take away somebody's expectations of something, and you become half the player, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, lessons who you are, absolutely, yeah.
If sometimes if I don't give you it, you fight for it a bit more, don't you? If you're given it, sometimes you might get a little bit comfy and a little bit relaxed. It takes away who you are. And I always felt that with Ireland. Listen, we were the dog and duck through Jack's era, but it made us who we were. It made us who we were. It brought us together. Team spirit was stronger. We fought for everything, and we got some unbelievable results. Hence the Germany game in 1994, hence the Italy game. It was who we were. And that DNA was very important to carry on through Mick's reign. Mick struggled a little bit with it because he wanted to move into this modern kind of thing, but he had to find the balance. And he did. He found the balance. But we got to Saipan, and unfortunately for me and the rest of the team and the country and Mick, was one player's expectations was a lot higher than the rest of us. And that brought the conflict, and it brought it to the moment where, you think you've seen everything in football, and this moment happens, and it was one of them jaw-dropping moments. It was like, because I'm very close to Mick as a friend and a manager, but I'd also grown quite close to Roy, through our careers. We were at loggerheads at times because of the United Liverpool. I always felt there was a little bit of maybe, I don't think of the word. I was born in England. Roy was 100% Irish beef. I was probably 25% Irish beef. So, I think there was a bit of that, a bit of animosity caused maybe because of that. I don't know. He might deny it, but I always felt there was a little bit of a stigma there. I always felt we never connected as closely as what we should have done, because me, Gary and Phil came back from 94, maybe took away a little bit of his thunder. He never wanted to be part of our little group, our three amigos, the thrust of stardom that come our way. He didn't want to be a part of that. I don't know whether he was a little bit about it. Maybe I'm jealous. Maybe it might be the right word. I don't. Only I can speak from him, but that's I might be way off the mark take on it. So obviously we're in this moment, and it was just one of them. You sit there after it's all happened and think, I don't have it in the memory bank here to deal with this. Like, as you grow older and experiences, they leave things in the computer, don't they? Like you can rely on when you need to.
And there's no point of reference when you've got this going on, is there?
No. You're just thinking, it's the captain of the national team, who's arguably the best midfielder in the world right now, who we need. And Mick McAteer, the manager. And I'm looking around at all these younger players who are kind of looking at like me and Quinny and the older ones going, what do we do? And then, he walks out the room. The dust settles for what feels like an eternity, but it's minutes. And then the ice is broken by one of the players kind of, breaking the ice with something to say. And then it's like, the whole experience for me then just goes west. It was like, you go from Ireland who, for the journos' point of view, they all want to know the stories from Brazil, Italy, Germany, England. They're the headlines of the World Cup. Ireland are never the headlines, but now we're the headlines.
The biggest story on the planet, bar none, then. Everyone's talking about it.
Well, we're in a bit of a bubble, so we don't really know the enormity of it until we land. So we fly out the next day. The argument happens the evening before we fly out. And we fly out. And I honestly expected Roy to be on the coach at 9:00. And, he wasn't. He wasn't there. And it was like, whoa, okay. And then 9:00, we leave. It's like Mick's like, 9:00, right, gone, we leave. And then we get to the airport, really feel it. It's only when we got off the plane in Japan, and Mick said to me, you're part of the media group. So there was me, Quinny, Alan Kelly, Steve Staunton. Obviously he's gone for that experience and he's gone for that memory bank. I'm not really the one, mate, to have on that panel. So, and in all honesty, there was no real questions thrown at me. Quinny's very much he's very much the politician. And, we're now in a scenario that is completely alien to me. I'm usually talking about preparation and how wonderful a World Cup is and my experience of '94 and they're not the questions. The questions is, where's your captain? Why has he gone home? What's happened? What was the argument about? What was this about? What's that about? And I'm sitting there thinking, please don't ask me. I don't want to be the one. What do I say? And, from looking back, it was a great experience in the sense of like I learnt a lot from it, but at the time it was nerve-wracking, yeah.
I'm just going to throw it all the way back to the start, and I asked you about studying and being a sporting director and going on the course and doing all the things. It's hard work, by the way.
Yeah.
But you've got the stuff in the computers. You've got the points of references now. Is that what you're going to kind of draw upon?
Yeah, but I can't really. I've got to reference someone else. I can't write an article and then reference myself.
It's like, true, but your experience is important, though.
Yeah, and
because you've lived on the inside of it, and you've seen it work without a sporting director, and realised maybe how it can work better with.
I mean, we're in the thrusts of our first essay, and it's about sporting directorship, but the history, and so I'm talking about like managers and this stature they had in the 90s and this relationship they've had with their owners, and I know firsthand Roy Evans' relationship with David Moores, the owner of Liverpool before, Gillette and Export FSG, was very close. I mean, they were tight, and they used to speak about recruitment. They used to speak about this, that, and the other. And I know that because I've been in a room with them and I've sat with them and I spoke to them, and I know it. So in my article, I'm writing down, Roy Evans has had a fantastic article. Ian, who's doing the course, the lecturer, he's like, you can't have that. And I'm like, well, why not? And he went, well, you need a point of reference. And I went, well, it's me. I was there. I seen it. And he went, no, it can't.
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that way. No. So, yeah. And the toughest thing is, I mean, as you can probably tell, I was never from an academic background. School, I went, but I was always kicking a ball. So, school wasn't, me and school didn't agree. I was just sport. So from an academic background, you know, writing essays is so new to me. So I'm learning on the job. And you're right, it's, you know, but it's opened my world up to, you know, working within the modern game, knowing what's expected of you, you know, to try and develop who I am, you know, as an academic, but also in a professional capacity, because I'd like to go in as a sport. Right now, as a sporting director, I'm attracted to it. Being an ambassador for Liverpool also has whet that appetite, because, you know, being around Billy Hogan, very inspired by him being the commercial manager first and now the CEO of Liverpool, and having a fantastic relationship with him. And the lads and girls at FSG, I know them, who I speak to. I'm kind of intrigued being on the partnership side of things at the club, meeting, you know, the heads of different organisations, being heavily involved with the likes of Standard Chartered, Joy Baby, all the partners Liverpool have had, who I've worked closely with. I've kind of whet my appetite to dealing with all different aspects of the football club, and you know, it's something I've been interested in. But right back to your question, there's a part of me that wants to dispel the trigger myth. It's not me. I played it as a role to survive, and I needed to survive. You know, I can still play him if I want to, but I don't. You know, hopefully that character will work its way out and only come out when it really needs to. But there is another side to me, and you know, I want to show that, and it would be nice with the help of the lads I'm dealing with. You know, I've met some fantastic people over the last 3 or 4 months who've inspired me to do it. You know, so yeah, it's a challenge, but I want to do it, and maybe I can say to people, you know, this is the real Jason McAteer.
Fantastic. That's the best way to end. We could have talked for ages, and maybe we'll do a sequel or something like that. But thank you, because that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. If you've been watching or listening, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you realise there's a lot more to Jason McAteer than Dave and Trigger. And look out for the next episode of the VSI Sporting Directors podcast, coming to your platform very soon.